Welcome to Healing the Gap. I'm your host, Morgan, and with me is my co-host, Kevin. And today we're talking with Gates from the Berkshire Doula Project to discuss abortion dueling. So Kevin, if you want to get us started with our first question.
Now, Gage, just have a quick question. What is a abortion doula? If you could just give us a little bit of light on that.
So doulas are a whole spectrum of reproductive care. So they can address anywhere from birth to postpartum care. And abortion doulas focus specifically on people receiving abortion procedures. And they provide emotional, informational, and physical support. Essentially everything but the medical needs. Doulas are not medically trained professionals. They have knowledge of the procedures, but they are not acting as a healthcare personnel. They're really there to support the patient in whatever way they need, whether that's holding their hand, talking them through a procedure, if they have a problem with how the doctor or other healthcare professionals are speaking with them, or they feel uncomfortable. Doulas are really there to advocate for the patient's needs when they're going through that abortion procedure. And a lot of doulas will kind of come into the process either right before the procedure or in a pre-appointment period, and then be with the patient afterwards.
And then could you just shed a little light on a brief history of your group as well?
Yeah, so the Berkshire Doula Project was founded in 2017 by 2016 by a 2017 graduate, Elizabeth Curtis. She did her thesis work. The title of her thesis was Choice Without Access, and it was about access to abortion care in Berkshire County, which is the westernmost part of Massachusetts, and it's an incredibly rural area with very, very limited access to abortion procedures, which in 2016 was incredibly limited and today is even more limited. So she took her thesis work and also, in conjunction with that, founded the Berkshire Doula Project as an organization of doulas who would help patients in the area receive better and more robust abortion and IUD care. And since that point, the group's really evolved using the principles of reproductive justice, which is an idea, like a term coined by Sister Song, that reproductive justice is the human right to maintain personal bodily autonomy, have children, not have children, parent the children you choose to have in a safe and sustainable communities. So Elizabeth Curtis really melded the idea of reproductive justice and abortion access to found Berkshire Doula Project. And obviously since then, we've evolved quite a bit and changed, but we maintain those founding principles.
Perfect. And then what would be like you guys' overall mission and your long-term goal?
Yeah, as I mentioned, we kind of use the idea of reproductive justice as our starting point, and that's how we choose to work as doulas. At the founding of the club, the main purpose was to work as abortion doulas in local hospitals. COVID-19, I'm sure, threw a loop in many, many things, threw a loop in our ability to be in clinics, because abortion, unfortunately, doulas are considered volunteers in hospitals. And during COVID, volunteers were not considered essential workers. So a lot of doulas, including us, were no longer able to go into hospitals. So since that point, it's been a bit of a rocky road returning to hospitals. So our goal has really shifted from training and being abortion doulas to taking the principles of being an abortion doula and applying them in other ways. So recently, we've been doing a lot more advocacy work, expanding access, focusing on other components of reproductive justice besides specific doula work.
Next, kind of just want to get into, I guess, the more nitty-gritty details of abortion dueling. So what does a typical day look like for an abortion doula who is on call?
Interesting thing with abortion doulas, birth doulas are on call. Obviously, birth is not something that can be put on a schedule. A lot of abortion doulas work actually in scheduled times, because a lot of the ways hospitals and clinics run abortion procedures is they'll have a physician come in. I believe for our group, it was Thursday mornings, and it was a set block of time where abortion procedures were performed. So that would be the set block of time that a doula would go and assist in the clinic. So the way it works is the hospital, you have a pre-appointment. The hospital at the pre-appointment will share, there's Berkshire Doula Project, for example. They have doulas who provide emotional support. Are you interested in having a doula attend your procedure? If the patient says yes, they'll be put in contact with the abortion doula, and the abortion doula, our group, will look at whose schedules work best and who can attend the procedure on that morning. And they will meet the patient at that procedure. If it's a surgical abortion, the hospital, when we're allowed to go into the hospital, we have shadowed, so we're allowed to attend not in the operating room itself, but with the patient before and after the procedure. So we'll meet with the patient before, get a sense of what their needs are. And really, it's honestly a lot about just getting to know people and what they need. Everyone needs a different level of support and a different type of support, and people are coming with different anxieties into the procedure. So we'll talk them through it beforehand, and then we'll be with them afterwards, after they're coming off anesthesia or pain medication. And then once they're ready to leave, then the doula will also leave and return to campus. Right now, we're working on how to adapt the in-person procedure for doula work with medication abortions, since that seems like it's the way the world is going in terms of abortion procedures, but we haven't quite figured out the flow of that. So that's what a surgical abortion doula would do in a day.
Okay, thank you. And our next question was like the patient perspective and like what does it look like on the back end for them? I think you've kind of answered that in your previous response, but is there anything you wanted to add in regards to the patient perspective of kind of receiving or inquiring about an abortion doula during their procedure or process?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing is it's really a lot of, unfortunately, is the hospital sharing the information that there are doulas available. We were fortunate to work with a hospital that would kind of not even promote our services. That makes it sound a little more transactional, but would offer that support to patients. And if you don't have a hospital that offers that support, there are a lot of the times doulas are not a standardized industry. There's no overarching training. So you could go online, and there are certain groups that do trainings that are a little more standardized. So you could go online and search doulas in my area. A lot of doulas have websites where they promote their doula work, and you would get in contact with them. A big thing that a lot of doulas do, I found less abortion doulas, more birth doulas, is you have to feel a good connection, and there has to be a lot of trust in an initial meeting. So I think for the patient, it's getting to know your doula and seeing if they could be great as a person and they could be an amazing doula, but they could be the wrong doula for you. And you really need to feel like that's someone you can work with and that's someone you can trust. So the only thing I'd add to the patient end is really getting a personal feel and kind of vibe of your doula. And if that's something that you connect with, then that's a doula you can move forward with. And if it's not something you connect with, a lot of doulas are very happy to connect you. It's not a personal attack. And I think we all know that and want the patient to feel the most comfortable.
Thank you.
Dealing with today's issue, how will the Roe v. Wade law affect your group?
Yeah, I think the biggest effect, so our group's based out of Massachusetts. So there's two ways that it's going to impact our group. Obviously, Massachusetts is maintaining its abortion laws. If anything, I think they're strengthening them to protect it more. However, we're anticipating an increase in people visiting from out of state to receive abortions. And even though Massachusetts has abortion protections, the foundation of our club was choice without access. You have the choice to get an abortion in Massachusetts, but if you don't have access, what is that choice? So with the anticipated influx of people visiting from out of state, we really recently have been kind of ramping up advocacy for expanding access in Massachusetts in preparation for increased numbers of patients. So a couple Planned Parenthoods in the area have closed down this summer. So we've been working with the college and local organizations to figure out where people can receive abortions. what are the medication abortions available online, and really make that access more robust. And then the second way I think we're anticipating the overturning of Roe v. Wade to affect us is we do serve a large amount of college students. That's probably the group that we interact the most with as a student organization. And obviously college students come from all across the country. So we're trying to figure out ways that we can support students in more restrictive states, even as we stay here in Massachusetts. So we're looking at doing virtual doula options. We're looking at doing trainings on personal privacy. We're working with the college on supporting students financially if they're going to receive an abortion while they're not on campus. So I would say those are the biggest ways it's impacted us so far. But obviously, the other thing is we're just anticipating it to always change.
Also, could you just update me on what does like the training kind of looks like?
Yeah, so the way our training is open to anyone, the way we run it is it's 2.5 days. So it doesn't sound like a lot, but it's a Friday evening, which really just starts with introductory and I'd say thought-provoking questions of reproductive justice and rights to kind of have the trainees do some self-reflection on their own values. And then we break it down into 3 sections: emotional support, informational support, and physical support. So emotional is your kind of typical emotional care crisis handling. And then informational, we go really specific into the procedures. Even though we're not healthcare personnel, we still believe it's important to be knowledgeable about the procedures you're working with. And then physical support has a lot to do with not only what physical support you can provide to patients, but how to assess if physical support is something the patient wants. So that would be hand holding, bringing waters with you, breathing exercises. So, and then on the last day of the training, that's when we do some dry run practice. So we do a lot of different scenarios to kind of test out the information they've learned the day before. So that's how you get your initial training, but to actually practice as a doula, our organization requires that you shadow in the hospital, or in this case, since we're moving towards a more virtual option, you'd have to shadow another trained doula to get your full doula certificate.
Kind of tying into training, we're just curious about kind of the transitional skills that are involved with the type of training you receive as an abortion doula. I remember when I was able to do the training, there were a lot of people there who maybe weren't gonna be doing abortion dueling, but were there to just kind of take in that knowledge and that experience. And if that's something you've seen, and where you see people use the skills that they require or that they acquire in your training, like where else you see they use them.
Yeah, that's a great question, because that's something that we last spring and this fall we've been working on updating our training to include everything required to be trained as a doula, but doing a bunch of additions for the changing landscape and to acknowledge the fact that A, we can't go into hospitals right now, and B, a lot more people are interested in reproductive rights who aren't abortion doulas, or who don't necessarily want to be abortion doulas. So we've actually been incorporating a lot more including a lot more information on access of just general reproductive care at the college, and then general reproductive care in the area, so that people, when they leave, I don't know if Morgan, you know anything about this, but the Rape and Sexual Assault Network on our campus, RASN, they run a training that's meant to have people run crisis hotlines, but they also keep the training pretty broad, so that it would apply to informal networks. So you'd say you have friend A who knows Jessica, using a random name here, and they know Jessica was RASN trained and they had an unsafe situation, and they will speak to Jessica informally. Berkshire Doula Project, I think we've been working quite a bit with RASN to use a similar method. We want people to come out of our training being able to, I think a lot of the ways information is shared on campuses and in communities is informally. So instead of being able to just support people as a doula, even if you don't want to be a fully certified doula, if your friend knows that you did Berkshire Doula Project training and they want to get birth control on campus, they can come and speak to you. So that's kind of what we've been promoting the training as more. We want to encourage as many people to attend, regardless of if they're interested in becoming a doula.
That's really good.
I'm really excited about it.
No, yeah, I like that aspect of, yeah, just kind of like the transitional skills involved with it, and how
Mm-hmm.
a lot of things I remember that I learned during that training, I felt like were very applicable just to a lot of other situations of just being trauma informed and dealing with crisis, whether like, for myself or for loved ones around me. And I know that's why a lot of people attended, even if they weren't
Mm-hmm.
exactly interested in being in the hospital setting.
I've honestly probably used it more in those settings than I have as a doula. It comes up a lot more than you would think.
Yeah, like I think one of the big things I like took away from the training was like language mirroring and
Yeah.
in situations like if, so that was like one big question, like, do you refer as baby, a fetus? Like, what do you do? What do you do? What do you
Mm-hmm.
do? And how important language is as like a support person, and how oftentimes you just want to reassure the person by mirroring the language that they use,
Yeah.
and putting like their thought process of the situation first. And I was like, yeah, I like that.
I think my absolute favorite one has been, when someone's upset and your first instinct is to hug them or comfort them or put an arm on them. And it can be really traumatic or upsetting for some people to have that, is to have it. And the training I attended, that was a big theme, was in physical support, checking in if that's what they need and want, instead of going on your own knee-jerk reactions of how to come, like, oh, I would want to hug, therefore they want to hug. So that's been helpful for me, because I am a big fan of, like, when I'm upset, I want to hug, but not everybody needs that or wants that. So it definitely applies all the time.
Right. The next couple questions that we have are kind of about the feedback that you get from the individuals that you work with. So
Mm-hmm.
I guess starting more on like the positive side, like what is there any like positive feedback that you either get from the hospital, the people you're providing services to, and the people you train, and what does that feedback look like?
Yeah, so I can't speak too much to how much the people we doula for, the feedback on that end, because I think that we maintain that as pretty private between doula and patient. But overall, we have a really positive, or we did, the OBGYN at Berkshire Medical Center that we founded the club with, or conjunction with, left, but I know we had a really positive relationship with them, and they were really excited about having a cooperative um, relationship with us. I think a lot of people view doulas and doctors kind of um, in conflict, and they were really excited about being able to fulfill the medical needs, and then having us as doulas to get to fill the emotional needs, and seeing it as a team. So I know that was positive input from the hospital on that end. Um, in terms of like community college campus, people we train, we've been working with a lot of businesses and smaller groups on campus and in the college. There's a new tea shop that opened up, and we did like a menstruation tea event with them. So we've been really trying to expand on that end, and get to know the community better outside of our patients. For trainings, we do a feedback form after every training. I guess you asked about positive, but I'll throw a negative in there. The biggest complaint is it's information overload. Um, and it's heavy information for one weekend. So we've been really debating expanding it, but also college students' time is incredibly limited, and it's really hard to find 2 weekends or multiple days where people would attend consistently. So that's something I fully agree with the feedback. I have yet to crack the code on how to incorporate it. Actually, the Friday evening sessions are a new addition to try and ease off a little bit load without adding too much extra time. But our trainings, we've heard pretty positive feedback, and from the community abroad, I think they've appreciated us switching over to just kind of trying to be knowledgeable experts about what's available on campus. A new pharmacy opened up on Spring Street, the Apothecary, and they provide 24-hour Plan B emergency contraceptive pills. And that's something that we promoted and advocated for, and I think has made a really big impact at the campus.
Okay, yeah. I love that. And kind of like jumping off of that, and you talked about some of it, but definitely want to hear more about just like BDPs, like community outreach, just like creative and collaborative ways that you've engaged, not just with, other college organizations, but just like, the larger county. I know you touched on some of them, but they're all really interesting. I want to hear more.
Yeah, that's something like as chair I've been trying to do, especially I think COVID really halted a lot of community connections we'd have because the college became rightfully so, incredibly strict about who was allowed on campus. Probably our biggest continued relationship is we have an abortion, not an abortion doula, we have a birth doula come speak at most of our trainings, Jeanette Monell, who is an abortion or a birth doula in Central Western Mass. And she is an amazing presence at all of our trainings. And it's really, she'll help connect if people at our trainings are interested in becoming a certified birth doula instead of just an abortion doula. I know she's helped walk people through that process and is always willing to assist. So that's one of my favorite community connections. Like I mentioned, Wild Soul River, which is a like crystal tea shop. We did some work with them last year for an event and handed out some it was we do menstruation celebration, which is when we we just give out free menstrual cups to students, anyone who's interested. But we also do a raffle to entice people to come and get them.
I still got mine.
They're amazing. It's one of my favorite events because we just say, people don't believe us. I'm like, if you come, you will get a free menstrual cup. I don't care if you have never thought about trying it. Here's a free one. We'll tell you how to use it. We'll give you all the information. But we did do a little raffle there, and we had some teas and like a goodie bag for menstrual care from Wild Soul River. So it's been a slow process with COVID, but I think we're ever expanding into the community. Looking forward, I would like to do more with the Elizabeth Freeman Center, which is a center for domestic violence, Tapestry Health, which provides a lot of queer care in the area. So those are two organizations I think we hope to connect with in the future, but haven't quite yet.
Awesome. It's nice to know that, because I know, the demographics of Berkshire County and in general how affected they were by COVID, to know that I'm recognizing a lot of these organization names and that businesses and these really important community outreach organizations like Tapestry Health and Elizabeth Freeman are like still thriving and being able to like work with the larger community. So that's really good.
No, it's been a lot of places made it through, which is thankful. I'd say the only casualty of COVID would be Planned Parenthood and Bennington, but we're working through that. And it's really great. I think Tapestry Health has stepped up into a lot of roles that people normally went to Planned Parenthood for in the past.
Okay. And then I guess the next question is about just, I guess we'll give a little bit of context to those who would be listening, that Berkshire County, the demographics, people are a little bit on the older end. It tends to be more conservative. It's definitely more rural. So just wondering if, and I know when I attended Williams, sometimes there was bits of friction between the college community and the larger community just because of the difference in demographics and background. So just wondering if there was any pushback any pushback towards the abortion dueling group, abortion services, as you guys, work towards that overall mission of expanding access to reproductive health.
Yeah, I've been very grateful since my time as chair. We haven't run into any conflict about abortion specifically with the community. If anything, it's always been a very positive reception because I think, at least in the way we try to speak about abortion care, is we try to speak about it in a broad sense and really linking it with healthcare access in general. I know that the hospital in North Adams was reduced in size a while back, and that was a big issue for the community and also a big issue for Williams students. So I think you really just have to try and find common threads. That's not to minimize conflict between the community and the college. I think in many ways the college is incredibly privileged position, and it always does not. I don't think it always does the best job at recognizing that. Not to say that students don't, but I think the administration and the college's presence on campus is very known in the community for better or worse. But we've been trying through healthcare. I mean, one thing I think people can unite on in the area is that students want healthcare. People in the community want access to healthcare, and that's something that we haven't had any bumps in the road with. So I think it's just about finding those common goals and sticking to them.
And if you could just kind of just give us an overview of like some frequently asked questions about what you all do. In addition, things that you wish people actually asked you guys just to educate themselves of, the things that you guys provide, the services.
Say our number one question every single year. We just had the Purple Key Fair, which for context is like our school's student organization fair. All the clubs come and show their tables. So we had that on Thursday, last Thursday. And the biggest question is, what's a doula? We're Berkshire Doula Project. Nobody ever knows what a doula is. I talked about that before, but I think it is a novel concept to a lot of people. Even when I joined the club, I had no idea what a doula was. So I'd say that's one of our frequently asked questions, or almost always asked questions. In terms of questions I'd like people to ask, I think the biggest thing is, and we've been trying to work on this, is a lot of people, because they see us, obviously we're Berkshire Doula Project, they see us as a doula organization, they don't necessarily know the number of other things we do. So like I mentioned, we run menstruation celebration. So I wish people would ask more about the other services we provide. We give out condoms, dental dams. We run a lot of teach-in events where we speak about just broader ideas of reproductive health. It really is like we are abortion doulas, but the issue is so intersecting with so many other things that we've been trying to kind of promote a more well-rounded image, as opposed to just being, if you need an abortion or an IUD, we can be your doula, but supporting people in a broad way.
This is a slight aside. Are you guys doing the IUD dueling?
So we are super excited. It looks like the college is trying to get IUD insertions done at the health center, which would give us a perfect opportunity to doula at the health center. And it would be our biggest issue, I'd say. We've tried doing IUD dueling in the past, but the Bennington Planned Parenthood closed, which is where most students went. Berkshire Medical Center, the scheduling is too difficult for us to attend. So that's one component of our training that we don't really get to do in person. But if the health center starts offering it for students, that would be a really exciting opportunity for us to doula.
Yeah, that's game changing to the whole campus.
It was big news. It hasn't happened yet. Obviously, I think there's a lot of bureaucracy and hurdles to get through, but it's at least on the table as a possibility.
Oh, fingers crossed for y'all. That's exciting.
Yeah, us too.
Well, that was our last question. Thank you so much for taking the time out of your schedule. I know students are busy, to come talk to us about the work you do. And, it's so cool. Like the fact that, the students are able to do that for the community and just take the time. And this knowledge is something that really you can last a lifetime.
Mm-hmm.
And you take with you to so many different parts and experiences as you grow. And so, this was very cool. And like, I think it's such an interesting topic, and that not a lot of people know about, and a lot of people don't know it's an option. That's why I was like, I know this group, we have to bring them on. Like, it's so interesting. Everyone needs to know what an abortion doula is. Everyone needs to know what a doula is, and know that that's an option. This was fantastic.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for having me on. And it's always nice to hear from alums who still think of the training so highly, and to know that people have really carried that with them, because that's our goal. So thank you.
Everyone for tuning in and taking the time out of your day. Once again, thank you, Gates, for being a part of this amazing podcast and providing very informative information. If you guys want to recap, please feel free to visit our website. And Gates, if you could just provide your information so then, our listeners can tune in and just get some advice from you guys.
Yeah, we are on social media. Instagram is at Berkshire Doula Project, Berkshire Doula Proj, PROJ, and we would love for you to come check it out and find more information about doulas.